So what was your exact plan? Walk us through that.
So my exact plan was like, okay, just hypothetical numbers. If we start off and you're billing $6,000 a week, next week let's bill 8. The next week let's bill 9,500. The next week let's bill 10. Let's gradually grow this so it looks like we're growing a business, not that someone just came in here and dumped 100 clients through the door. Let's build it up a little bit more. Let's also make sure that if we get audited, we have the paperwork to support what we said that we did. So as I'm billing this, I also have to make sure the documentation matches what we said we billed. Because early on in the business, he had gotten what they call a review or an audit. And when the auditors came in, they saw that everything wasn't there. Everything that they said they billed didn't have, and it wasn't that they didn't have documentation. Let me say that, because the documentation was there, but you can also be dinged because the documentation isn't good. So if I don't put a Medicaid number on the top of the paper, it's not billable. If there's no doctor's signature, it's not billable. If the codes don't match, it's a payback. You have to pay it back. So the paperwork you get, so it's almost like the government pays you up front, then they come and audit you and take it back. So I always say it's like living on a loan, because they can come back and get it whenever they want. So you got to cover your tracks. So not only can I not go from 0 to 100 overnight, because I can't document that many files that quick. So you got to give me time to make sure everything looks legit. Because if they come in here tomorrow, I got to be able to show them a file that's going to pass and we not have to give the money back. So my plan was build it up slowly. Let's keep documenting, keep seeing the clients, just pad up their stuff, add a little bit more, and just coast a little bit.
Now, this is different from your first business where there was an actual cap on the billing, where this you can just keep saying you're doing more hours.
Yes.
This wasn't like you can only make $8,000 a month for this client.
So in the group home business, they're either in that bed at midnight or they're not. And you're going to get one set rate. That's it. It's capped. It's a set amount. How many ever days they're there, that's it, period. You really can't. You could, but that's almost ridiculous, because if someone's not in your house and they're somewhere else, that's a lot easier to prove than me saying I went out somewhere for 10 minutes versus 30. And that's a lot easier to do it whenever it's out in the community or people are coming into your office.
So you don't need actual different Medicaid numbers. You have legitimate Medicaid numbers from legitimate clients. You're just fluffing how much services you're giving to them.
At first.
Okay. So what happens next?
So greed kicks in and we need more clients. The only way to get more billing is to bring in more clients. How do you get more clients? We've got to get them from somewhere. And in the industry, we have what's called like recruiters. And these are basically marketers that go into low-income communities or go places that they believe there's a high concentration of individuals with Medicaid, and they start offering them things and making promises to get them to come into your office to become one of your clients. So that's the first thing, is get some recruiters. So there were some individuals that would go out in the community, that would find people, they would come back, and then we had a new book of clients. So now we're able to keep them recruiting. Sometimes the recruiters charge per person. Sometimes they want a percentage of your billing.
And are these people actually using the mental health services, or are they just showing up?
Showing up one time, get an assessment. Sometimes you don't see them. Also, we would also have a huge population of non-English speaking clients. So they were a lot less risky, because if an auditor came in their house, they're not going to talk to them. So you also want to target those kind of communities too, because they're a lot less. They don't know how to read the English for the insurance stuff. So they're a better client to have on your books.
And what was their incentive to show up? Because at the last place they were offering the free food, or these people?
Gas cards, $25, pay and be, like just different stuff. And sometimes they just didn't know. They thought they were going to get some services. Sometimes people also say, I have an after school program. Your kids can come after school, so you feel like you're getting free after school care. but really we're billing your Medicaid.
Now, is Medicaid the only victim here, or these clients have to pay an extra copay? Or what is the damage done to these
only
individuals?
Medicaid. It's a straight Medicaid billable service. There's nothing charged to them. You can ask for a copay, but we didn't. We didn't need it. And it'll tell you how much is going to be deposited on Thursday. So the first time I did it, because you don't know when you put it in, you just, and that's how they came up with the intended loss. How much did you submit? But then how much actually got paid? Because if you got a number wrong, if you got the birthday off, if you misspelled a name, maybe you bill for 5 sessions and they only have 4 left, like all those things can kick the billing back. So I remember, I used to remember Sunday nights just waiting for the system to update so I could call it and see how much is going to be deposited on Tuesday. And I just remember that first time, the one time I put in this bill was like $60,000, and I remember sitting like, oh my God, this is so much. This is so much. But at that point, you're like, fuck it, I done all this. It might as well go. And when I called that system that Sunday night, and like a lot of it, like 58 something had come through, I was like, shit. I was like, I fucked up. So she's about 5 or 6 months older this time. I left and went back to I went to school that August. Whenever in 2018, so that was 2013 when she was born when I left. It wasn't until 2018 that the SBI came. It wasn't until 2020 that the FBI came. It was 7 years after I left.
What's the statute of limitations on that?
10.
Oof.
10. I was right at it. And every year I would count. Every year. I just remember every year like, okay, 1 year down. 1 year down. 1 year down. I'm like, I'm getting close. And I left in 24. Now, my paperwork says until 26 because that's how, or till 26, 27 because that's how long he kept going after I left. So I left in the late part of 2013, 2014. It keeps going into 2016, 2017. So 3 to 4 years later. But I didn't know it was still going because I thought that I had left and took everything with me, and you're not going to be able to do this without me. You're gonna lose it all because I'm leaving you, and you can't do this without me. You're right.
What were you doing when you left in between the time
I went back to school. I became a professor. I got remarried. I was rebuilding. I was just going to restart my whole life and put all that behind me and pray to God that the FBI wasn't going to show up.
Did your new husband, have any idea?
No. I didn't tell him anything about it. He knew that I had worked in that industry. He knew that I had a breakup, but I didn't share any of that stuff until I got approached by the FBI.
Tell us about that.
So the world was shutting down because of COVID, 2022. And at this point, I was working in a new job. I was working at the college, and my daughter and I had started an event company. And I remember getting ready to go to the mall one day to meet somebody to give them, she had rented something from us for a party, and I was getting it back. And she said, I'm going to the mall, so can you meet me at the mall? And I said, oh yeah, I'll come up to the mall. So I went into the mall that day, met her, picked up whatever it was, took it back to my car. I get back to my car and I'm like, you know what, I'm hungry. I'm gonna go back into the pavilion. And at our mall, the pavilion's up on the 3rd floor. I go up, I get my stuff, and I'm coming down the escalator and I see my favorite store, which was H&M. So I'm gonna go in H&M and I'm gonna shop a little bit. And I'm on the telephone talking to one of my friends. And in our mall, there's a lot of people that sell like incense and scented oils and like shoe cleaners and all that stuff. And they're always like trying to stop you, like trying to sell you something. So I remember coming out of H&M and someone's like, Miss. And I'm like, I'm talking on the phone and I'm like, I don't want it. I'm not even looking at him. And he's like, Miss. And I'm like, I don't want it. And he kept saying like, miss. And I finally said I don't want it. And I looked up and it's a white man. And he jumps in front of me. He gets in front of me. He was like, ho, 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 ho. And I'm like, damn, you aggressive. Like in my head, I'm like, so I'm talking to my friend. I said, hold on, let me call you right back. And I was like, I'm good. I don't want anything. And he pulls out his thing. He said, no, ma'am, I'm somebody from the FBI. I'm in the middle of the mall. And I'm like, okay, and this is crazy. This is the craziest thing ever. But in the moment, you know how on the movies when somebody gets killed and the police come to tell you that somebody died, I don't know why that was the first thing that came to my head. I was like, oh God, somebody got hurt. Like something happened. And he says, are you Sherlita? And I said, yeah. And he was like, okay. He was like, come on with me. Come on with me. And I'm standing like sick. And he's like, no. He was like, it's okay. Just calm down. Cause he could see that I'm like, and so I say, what's going on? Like, what's going on? Cause I'm starting to think, I don't know why I thought he was getting ready to tell me something happened. Cause I'm not registered in FBI and police and all that stuff. And he says, do you know Antonio? And I said, that's my daughter's father. I'm thinking he's getting ready to tell me something happened to him. He said, oh, I know that. And that's when I was like, oh, shit. And I was like, and he said, but I think you know a little bit more. And I said, what's this about? And he said, just walk out and I won't embarrass you. And I said, okay. And so by this point, we're almost at the door, at like the exit out of the mall. And he's like, just keep walking. He was like, I won't embarrass you. Just keep walking. And I walk out and come outside and I look over and they're the marshals. And I was like, fuck.
Oh, so they were already ready
ready for me.
Arrest you and everything.
It was ready.
Wow.
It was ready for me.
So there was no talking your way out of this one.
And at first, he asked me, he was, as we were walking, he was like, so do you know this company? And I was like, no. And then I remember my attorney was like, why did you lie? And tell me the truth. He was like, you lied to the FBI. I was like, I didn't. I just said no. He was like, do you know the company? I was like, no. I was like, I don't know anything. I hadn't been there in 7 years. I don't know nothing. Like I was going, and my attorney was like, you can't lie. You just don't say nothing. That was later on. He was like, oh my God, they're going to kill you for like lying. He just had me all crazy and I remember just like in that moment, again, this is right at the top of COVID. So the world is getting ready to shut down. And now I'm in the middle of an investigation. The world is shutting down. And that just starts like everything gets delayed. I can't get to court. Like it just started a whole cycle and I'm caught up in it. Like, what the hell? I'm stuck in my house. I don't know what's getting ready to happen.
So they give you bail after they arrested you?
They let me go. They subpoenaed me and they said they wanted all of my records. But again, I don't have nothing. I ain't been there 7 years. I don't know what you want. So I immediately called my friend because at this point she's out. She's already back out.
Oh, she went to prison.
She done went to prison. She did a year and a day and she's out. So I call her and I'm like, who was your attorney? And she's like, what? And I was like, who was your attorney? And she was like, what are you talking about? I was like, who was your attorney? And she's like, she tells me the name of the attorney. She was like, why? I was like, the FBI. And she was like, fuck. She thought it was because of the company that they were coming back for them, like for the company that I had sold. Because they were still hitting up people from their case. Like people were still getting him. Like there were people that still hadn't been sentenced off their chain of events. So I was like, where are you at? And she was like, she was at the time, she had just got out. She was cleaning buildings. And I said, I'm coming to where you are. So I'm like, I'm on my way. So on my way there, I called my daughter's dad. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm in doing something. And I was like, he was like, what's wrong with you? Now, at this point, I'm married. I got a family. I got everything. And I was like, where are you? And he's like, what? You're scaring me. What's wrong? And I said, do you remember that place that we used to go to all the time? Like, I forgot. He was like, yeah. I was like, you remember that place? And he was like, yeah. I was like, go to that place. Because I didn't know. I'm thinking they're tracking. I don't know what the hell they're doing. And so he goes, and it ended up, it used to be this Mexican restaurant that we used to go eat at. And I'm like, go there. And I get there before him, and I park in the parking lot. So I see him coming up. So at this point, he knows something's like, he knows I'm getting ready to probably drop a bomb on him. So I see him circling through the parking lot. He just keeps circling. So I finally get out of my car and start walking towards the park, towards the restaurant. But I don't go in the restaurant. I go into the Starbucks beside it. And I go into Starbucks and sit down and like, is he going to come in? And he finally walks in. And he sits down in front of me. And he said, what is it? I said, I got a visit. And he's like, from who? I said, who you think? And he said, and he just looks. I said, what you been doing? Because I don't know. I thought you stopped. I thought it stopped. And he says, what are you talking about? And I said, what have you been doing? And he was like, I'm not doing anything. And I was like, well, according to my subpoena, there's a whole lot of billing that's been going on. I said, and I don't have any of the records because I've not been there. He said, they asked about me. I said, you were the first person they asked me about. And he's like, oh, shit. So this is how crazy this is. We're sitting in the Starbucks across from each other, and this guy walks in who I know has been to federal prison, and he has this business where he helps felons. But he has a cake shop that was in the same area that we used to have our office. He walks in, and I see him, and I just walk up to him, and I said, I got to talk to you. And he was like, okay. He was like, are you all right? I said, no, I got to talk to you, because I was going to get a referral from him from an attorney, because I knew he worked, he had gone through cases and stuff. And I said, I'm going to call you later. And so we sit back down, and we start talking. And while we're talking, I was like, well, I'm getting ready to go. We walk back to the car. We're standing outside, kind of chumping it up, and he gets a phone call. And he's like, and I said, what is it? He was like, this is somebody else. The FBI's at their house. They had started making rounds. They were going. And I said, I told you. And I was like, what is he saying? And so at this particular person, they saw the FBI on their Ring camera. So they were talking to them through their Ring. But they said when I get home, they said they stuck their card in the door. I'm going to tell you who it is. I was like, it's got to be the same person. It's got to be the same people. They're investigating. And that's how we knew. He didn't know he was under investigation until I had, told him that day.